Welcome into a very special Jersey-themed edition of the No Pulp Podcast. I'm Danny Tao. With me today, Austin Barach, Jack Gordon. Gentlemen, it's a beautiful day to be alive.
It is. Friday night, Syracuse is playing, college football is here, fall is in the air. We got the jerseys on, the Syracuse Mets. Shout out to Irish night last Thursday. It is, in fact, a great time to be alive.
You know, Danny, Austin, I walked outside this morning. I felt that crisp fall air. First thing that came to my mind, football. College football came to my mind right away. And it's a Friday, and we've got great games, so let's talk about it.
Ironically, it's football weather. None of us are repping football jerseys unless you're from Europe, of course. But nonetheless, we've got a lot to discuss in the world of college football today. And we're going to kick this off with a bit of a big picture thing. I want to hear underrated teams. So we're going to do a little bit of a snake draft, go back and forth. We're all picking our top 4 underrated teams in college football. The only rule is they cannot be in the top 15 because how can they be underrated then? All right, so Jack, do you want to kick us off for this draft?
I will kick things off. Number 1, I'm taking Washington. 3-0 to start the season. They have one of the best wins in the whole country. They went and beat Michigan State 39-28. That's one heck of a game and a great win to start the season for them. And there's a reason I trust them. I have a lot of faith in Michael Penix Jr. I think he's a very good college quarterback, and I think he can get it done.
Well, it seems like he didn't get it done at Indiana when he was a Hoosier. I do like the Washington pick. I've always had a soft spot for their jerseys, their stadium. You got the Kings jersey there. Kind of looks like that purple last week on ABC with Michigan State. I like the pick, but is Michigan State a good enough win to qualify for an underrated team? I like the pick, but is Michigan State good enough for Washington to be valued at that highly?
I mean, perhaps. I think that's more of a to each their own kind of thing. But you know what? I think it's very fair for a team coming off a win like that, who still isn't ranked, to, you can call them underrated.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for a team that goes out and schedules a game like that early on. Tough Big Ten matchup in Michigan State, and you don't see a lot of the best teams in the country going out and scheduling hard games. You see a lot of teams, they want cupcakes early on. Washington challenged themselves, and it really paid off.
Yeah, as I'm going to preface for my first pick of the draft here, when we talk about underrated teams and even overrated teams that we're going to get to, we're kind of going off a small sample size, right? It's multiple games. We've only had 3 weeks. A lot of these teams have played, FCS opponents, maybe smaller tier FBS opponents, so take it with a grain of salt. But you mentioned the top 15 parameter, Danny, which is great for me because I'm going with number 16, Ole Miss.
That's the easy way out.
Yeah. No. I had them before, and then I looked at the rankings. Would you look at that? They're number 16, perfect. Jackson Dart. All right, this kid's legit. I know he had a tough season last year at USC, but that was kind of a lost season, right? He comes over, he has a beautiful deep pass, he rolls right. He's a tough kid. He doesn't take sacks, and when he does, he just stands in the pocket. He's got a 154.3 quarterback rating this season, and he doesn't even need to be that special for this Running Rebels team because they got a 1-2 punch at the running back position with Zach Evans, who was listed as Mel Kiper Jr.'s second best running back prospect over the likes of Sean Tucker and also Quinshawn Judkins. They have each of them 600 plus, not each of them combined, 600 plus rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. This is a very good Ole Miss team.
I know the rules said top 15, but Jack's right. Like taking 16
an SEC team
just feels like a cop-out.
I kind of want to agree with you, though. Although they are an SEC team right outside the top 15, this is a team that looks kind of spicy early on. Like, they could make some noise in the SEC. They grab a couple of big victories. It's a team that could sneak into a New Year's Six bowl. And outside of some real football analysis, Jackson Dart might have the coolest name for a quarterback you could possibly have.
Jackson with an X? Are you kidding me? We got Jonathan Mingo, dog. We got Ulysses Bentley, the 4th, dog. Like, these are some insane names that Lane Kiffin has on his team, and I know it's SEC, how can they be underrated? We haven't really heard from them, right? It's been Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. So USC, not USC, Jackson Dart's former team, but Ole Miss, I like them.
Okay. I can respect it, maybe. We'll come back to that. So, all right, snake draft. So I got 2 picks here on the turn. First one, I'm going to keep it here in the ACC. I'm going Wake Forest. This is a team, number 21 in the nation, so a little further away from that top 15 parameter, but feels like they're getting slept on. No one's really talking about them. Coming off an ACC championship game appearance. They have Sam Hartman back from whatever private issue he was dealing with earlier in the year, and that feels like a big reason that no one's talking about them. They're 3-0. They have a big game against Clemson tomorrow. Personally, I think they're going to beat Clemson tomorrow, and they're going to prove that they're one of the top teams in the country.
That is kind of a hot take,
That's
thinking
a hot
they're going to
take.
beat Clemson. But I understand where you're coming from with Wake, because I think when Sam Hartman was supposed to be out for a long time, people didn't really expect him to come back for the season. I think Wake was lost in the shuffle right there. People forgot about them, and then when he started playing again, they were like, all right, we'll sneak him into the top 25. I think they're a lot better than that. I agree with you.
So my concern with Wake, two-pronged. Liberty, they barely squeaked out that victory, and this is a Liberty team that does not have Malik Willis anymore. And then the stadium. I'm sorry, am I harping on the stadiums? They seat, what, 30,000 people? Come on. It's a North Carolina stadium. You can do better than that, Wake Forest.
App State's got all the hype right now. It can be a little bit forgiven. But so coming around the turn here, another team that feels just a little bit forgotten about for no real good reason, in my opinion, Coastal Carolina, down in the Fun Belt.
Okay.
One of the toughest conferences in the nation this year. Look, they're already 4-0. They already played their Week 4 game last night. And it feels like just that first generation of guys who kind of helped make them relevant, now that they're graduated, people are sleeping like Isaiah Likely, gone to the NFL now, playing with the Ravens. But Grayson McCall is still there. He's already got over 1,000 yards passing through 4 games, 11-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Jamie Chadwell's still there. The Mullets are still there. Like, the chants are still there. And they've got chances later on in their schedule at Marshall versus App State, at JMU. They've got tough games that they can go out and prove that they're one of the better teams in the group of 5.
Well, I don't have much to add there at Coastal Carolina, but we're going to stick in the Tar Heel state.
All right.
And I'm going to pick your North Carolina Tar Heels right here at number 2, all right? This team is 3-0. They're not being talked about enough because they, off the bye week. But this is a team that is 5th in the country in yards per game with, get this, over 545 yards per game. That's crazy. That's crazy. Drake May, talk about a name right there. Drake May, younger brother of Luke May, UNC great at basketball. So this kid's got 930 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. Sneaky, Heisman candidate, some people are saying. And I like this quote he had. He had this quote the other day. Some people may say state, meaning NC State, but really people who go to state just can't get into Carolina. Some people might view that as a diss, right? But I like that charisma out of my starting quarterback right there. It almost reminds me of Garrett Schrader, if you will. So this team is good. Their defense, maybe not so much. But this offense, when they beat Notre Dame this weekend, they will be ranked and people will talk about them once again.
So you mentioned something there that I have to emphasize. You said maybe they don't play defense. Yeah, Austin, they don't play any defense. They allowed 61 points to App State.
It's a good team.
Appalachian State, okay, I get it. They're getting some noise right now. But this is North Carolina. You're an ACC team. I know there's not any Big Ten defense being played in the conference, but come on. You play a team like App State and you allow over 60, they're going to get destroyed by ACC offenses.
They got a guy named Storm Duck.
Storm Duck's cool.
When you have a name like that, how can you lose?
Exactly. That's why they're undefeated.
That's why Syracuse has Deuce Chestnut, and they're undefeated.
You got to counter the names out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can't
have power.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. So you're going North Carolina. I'm going with my next pick that a lot of people love to talk about this school. A lot of people love to call them overrated. But I'm going with Texas. Yes, I'm not going to say Texas is back. But Quinn Ewers is back. He got injured earlier on in the Alabama game. I'll keep him up. I'm keeping horns up.
I'll keep him in the middle.
It's a 15-yard penalty for me right here.
There you go. That's unsportsmanlike, Austin. So Quinn Ewers is back to take on Texas Tech. And you saw him in that Alabama game. They were right in it. They lost by 1. This is a team that challenged itself early on. I give you a lot of respect if you're playing Alabama before you start your conference schedule. They almost won. They're 2-1 right now. They've got one of the best running backs in the nation in Bijan Robinson. I think this team is here to stay, and they might squeak into the top 10 before the season is over.
Jack, it sounds like you want to hang a banner called Almost Beat Alabama. This is Texas football we're talking about.
Me. That's a win for me.
What a fall for grace for the program. Yeah. They're underrated because they almost beat Alabama. What a disgrace. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, many teams have hung the almost beat Alabama banner, but a program like Texas, I don't think they can really claim that.
Just wait.
All right, wait. All right, you got one more on the turn?
I do. One more for you. I love this team, too. Kansas. 3-0. Come on, Austin. They're not ranked right now, but trust me, they will be. This is a team that has been not just 6 feet under. They've been 100 feet under for years now.
A lot of feet under.
They're one of the worst programs in college football history. But this season, they are back. They have broken that trend. They're 3-0. And talking about challenging themselves, they won at West Virginia. They won at Houston. Those are 2 of the best wins that anyone has this season.
West Virginia's no great team.
But they're a
Houston
good team.
legit.
They're
Winning
a
in
very good
Morgantown
team.
is never easy.
Exactly. That's why I have Kansas up there. They're not ranked right now, and I don't necessarily think they should be at the moment. In a couple weeks, yes, I do. I think this is a very good team with a great offense.
One stat to note with Kansas, averaging a cover on the spread of 23 points per game.
Wow.
Second best in the country.
Wow. That
Good
should be a
teams
feat.
win,
Great teams cover. Great teams
Exactly.
cover. So we get to this point in the snake draft where really there's a lot of value picks going on.
Okay.
On my initial, list when I was doing this, I had one team at 3, one team at 4, but because I can get the team at 3, I believe in the next round, and I think you might steal this team.
Okay.
I want to pick this team. So there's been a lot of talk about Cougars and Zach Wilson, but how about them Cougars of Washington State?
Wow.
Wazoo.
Yes,
Wow,
that's
okay.
right.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, you mentioned App State, we mentioned Marshall. They got the big upsets, but what else happened that weekend? Washington State went into Camp Randall Stadium and beat the then-ranked, 19th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers, right? They were a 17.5-point underdog. They didn't get the media coverage because of those 2 upsets, but their defense is what I really love. They are second in the country with 14 sacks. They are best in the Pac-12 in points allowed per game with under 13 per game. That's almost Georgia defense right there. And then they got a guy. They have a guy? Deion Henley.
That's
Remember,
not a guy. That's a guy.
That's
He's
a guy.
He's not a guy. He's a dude.
He's a dude. He's a dude.
Yeah.
This is a dude because he's a linebacker and he wears number 1. A linebacker that wears number 1. He's got the armband, not as much as Mikel Jones, but this guy has. I'm looking
You meant
at
this dude.
This dude.
This dude, yes.
There's a lot of words here, but I'm tough with words. 30 tackles on the season, 4 sacks through just 3 games, and last week he had 3 of those sacks and 2 forced fumbles against Colorado State. He was the defensive player of the week. He has an interception on the season. He's got elite speed, agility, and last week's in the past, right? He shares this quote with us. Last week is over, and I'm on to the next week. I'm trying to be better, trying to elevate. And he will elevate, as I believe the Cougars will cover and perhaps beat the Oregon Ducks and therefore be ranked this time next week.
A lot of quotes.
I love
quote
quotes.
machine.
I
I
love
like
quotes.
it. I like that.
A lot of love for the Evergreen State, too.
Yes.
Wazoo, Washington,
Yes, sir.
feeling the West Coast. Well, I'm keeping it on the East Coast with my next 2 picks. First up, the Dukes. James Madison.
Oh, God.
Shouldn't have let him
Save
slide.
it. Save it.
Shouldn't have let him slide. Look, the Dukes, there's a reason that they were so dominant in the FCS, and now they're in the Fun Belt. It's one of the best Group of 5 conferences. Look, it's a team effort with them. There's no real star players or standouts. Todd Centeio, Chris Thornton on offense, they're leading the way, but it's a real group effort. And I know I mentioned that Kansas 23-point average cover. Number 2, James Madison's number 1. 23.5-point average cover. Best in the FCS. And the Sun Belt is tough. App State, Coastal, Marshall, Old Dominion, JMU. They're all good football programs that if James Madison can beat them later on their schedule, they've got a real resume. That's not just any walkover.
They're going to beat App State this weekend. I know that.
Wow.
So yeah, this is a bummer for me because I thought James Madison would be able to get back to me on the turn, but Danny with a great pick there. They're outscoring opponents 107-14 this season. Don't look up who those opponents are, by the way.
Yeah, come on. I don't think we can talk stats like that through weeks. If you play nobody, then your numbers are going to be inflated like balloons. Those are lucky numbers.
Chris Thornton, though, the receiver, 247 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he's played just 2 games.
Decent.
5 touchdowns.
That doesn't do it for me.
Doesn't do it for you.
Doesn't do it for me.
That doesn't do it for
Nope.
you? Well, these guys might do it for you. How about the Maryland Terrapins?
Wow.
I'm going home for this one.
Okay. Homer pick, yeah.
A little bit of a homer pick, but Chris Thornton, if Chris Thornton's a dude, Raheem Jarrett is a guy. Raheem Jarrett might be a top 5 receiver in the nation right now.
Wow.
He is a dog. He's got Talia Tagovailoa throwing it to him, who's a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten, behind one C.J. Stroud, and then there's some debate for number 2. But Tagovailoa is up in that conversation, too, for a top quarterback in the Big Ten. Now, look, Maryland, they're going to get blown out by Michigan tomorrow. Let's make no mistake about that. But they have a legit shot to get to 9 wins. Tell me if any of these games sound like remotely losable for Maryland. Versus Michigan State.
Loss.
Versus, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's another discussion.
Yes,
but
done.
Versus Purdue.
Loss. That's a good Purdue team. Aiden O'Connell's
Wow, all right.
You didn't put Aiden O'Connell in top 3 Big Ten quarterbacks. You
No.
got Talia Tagovailoa, who's just as much of a traffic cone as his older brother.
This is why they're underrated. You guys just aren't giving Maryland the respect they deserve.
I'm not.
This is a team
They
that
don't deserve it.
has a very legitimate shot to not just get into bowl contention, but get into a good bowl contention, too. Shout out Bo Brady on that defense as well.
I think Jack and I are writing off the Terrapins, and
Yes.
they won't be writing back to us.
Geno Smith style.
They won't be writing back.
They won't write back.
All right. You have another
Last pick. No, that's my 4.
Okay,
It's all
so
on you.
this is tough here because I have to pivot on the fly here. This is No Pulp Podcast history. And so the pivot will be Miami, the Hurricanes.
Okay.
So I know they lost.
Just wait till we get back to me, and I'll tell you exactly why.
Exactly why I'm wrong. Yeah, so they lost to A&M, but I was watching the game and I respected how they played. Right, they got Van Dyke. He's a tough quarterback. They got a good defense. Held the Aggies to 17 points, and they have a receiver who caught my eye. And I got to scroll so far in my notes. Jacoby George, great athlete. He's got the juke moves on display. Unfortunately, he did break his thumb in the game. So he won't be playing. He won't be playing moving forward here. But when he returns, watch out for the squad.
I don't know about that
So
one,
the
Chief.
reason that you like them isn't even playing anymore. Okay, Austin. Let me tell you another reason you shouldn't like them. Because the team you named that beat them is Texas A&M. They're better than Miami. They won 17-9.
Is this your underrated team?
Texas A&M is my underrated
Wow.
team. They're 23rd in the nation right now. They started in the top 10 this season, and they lost to a team that I disrespected earlier, Appalachian State. But you guys seem to like them, I guess. So I'm going Texas A&M. Quarterback play, not promising so far, but this is really one of the most talented teams in the nation. They let up 9 points to Miami, 17 to App State, and Sam Houston, that's a real team, right? 0. Put up a
They
goose
surely
egg.
won that App State game, right? If they scored.
Well,
if
it was a tight one, but did they win that Miami game? Oh, okay. I'm going A&M. I really think they're underrated at 23. I think after they lost to App State, it was a little bit of an overreaction. They should be somewhere in that 15 to 20 range.
We'll say A&M, the largest fall in rankings in at least a decade. I
Yeah,
don't know the
yeah.
exact year, but they fell, 18 spots in the rankings?
Yeah.
That's one of the largest falls in poll history.
They have a lefty quarterback now. I just have a thing against lefty quarterbacks. No dissing to Tua, but I don't trust
you
lefty
can diss
quarterbacks.
Tua.
diss
He's
to
not
Tua,
good.
I don't know. All right, so there's our teams. Washington, Texas, Kansas, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Carolina, Wazoo, and Miami, Wake Forest, Coastal, JMU, and Maryland.
Yeah, so
Add me to the JMU.
The 4 teams
bandwagon.
you mentioned, my name, they're going to be in the college football playoff. That's
Really?
1 through 4. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 1 through 4.
A&M making the college football playoff.
No, Kansas, more importantly.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Had to clarify.
Well, hey, if any of you have thoughts on our team, let us know on the Citrus TV socials. But those are underrated teams. Let's talk about overrated teams. All right, so now we're going from teams that aren't getting the respect they deserve. Now some teams that are maybe getting some too much hype. The only rules here, this team must at least be receiving votes in the AP poll. I'm going to kick us off this time. We'll go the other way around. I'm taking Minnesota. Minnesota.
Fair.
They're 3-0, but they've beaten 3 nobodies. New Mexico State, Western Illinois, and Colorado. Colorado's not really a nobody, but they're the worst team in the Power
They're
5.
very bad.
They're just a one-dimensional team. All they can do on offense is give the ball to Muhammad Ibrahim. And I get it. Muhammad Ibrahim is a very good running back.
Is he a dude or a guy?
Guy. No, dude.
Dude?
Dude.
Yeah,
He's
all right,
a dude.
He's a dude. Yeah,
Cool name,
he's a
though.
dude.
Muhammad Ibrahim, that's tough.
Yeah,
that's
tough.
tough.
Good name, too. But
T-U-F-F,
when
tough.
he
Yes.
struggles, the offense collapses. They don't have another option behind him. So without that, they're not going to beat these teams that aren't nobodies coming up on their schedule.
That's true. Yeah, it's a tough exercise, I think, to formulate overrated teams, because Minnesota wasn't even on my radar, for example, as being an overrated team, and also being like natural optimists. I don't really want to label any of these teams overrated. You know,
You're too nice.
They're going to come back to bite me. But if there is one team that I can confidently say is overrated, it's the Clemson Tigers.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. 5th in the nation, 3-0. Yeah. They've allowed 20 points to both Louisiana Tech, actually just Louisiana Tech, but you know the haters will say that Bulldogs team, you know, put up 52 in their game before Clemson, but Clemson still gave up over 300 yards passing that game, 120 yards to a tight end named Griffin, tight end named Griffin. Can't be doing that. They rank last.
It's so unimportant you didn't even put his full name down.
Yes.
I mean, the name Griffin, you like subtweeting anyone in our general vicinity? Just anyone with the name Griffin?
Seem to have a problem with
Actually,
did Blake Griffin do something to you? Something
completely
on your
coincidental,
mind?
I guess.
All right,
Yeah,
that's fair.
I won't be shocked if my mic is muted momentarily, I guess, now. But Clemson, they rank last in the ACC with 5 sacks. So much for a vaunted defense. Dabo Swinney is a corny guy. He's running sprinting on the field 40 yards.
That's a head coach that cares.
40 yards ahead of the rest of his team. Who are we? Who are we here? And then, you know, the defense is supposedly, you know, good, right? But the offense is mightily struggling. And I know a lot of blame is put on Uyunglele, but get these stats. Clemson Tigers rank just 63rd in the nation in yards per play, 85th in yards per pass attempt. Uyunglele, what's going on there? And they infrequently get explosive plays despite the bad early season schedule. They played, you know, the little sisters of the poor, a little John Dalesism, if you will. So they're not getting explosive plays. This is a team that had fewer than 15 first half points to both Georgia Tech and Louisiana Tech, respectively. It seems like a problem. This offense is a problem that might be bigger than just tossing out Cade Klubnik and saying, oh, he'll figure it out. So Clemson 3-0. They played nobodies. Their offense is bad. Their defense only has 5 sacks. I don't like them.
Yeah, I have to bounce back there, and let me tell you why. Their defense is very good, and you're going to see why in ACC play. Brian Breesy, is that how you say his name? He is a certified stud. He will be a first-round pick. He's going to make noise in the NFL. Let me tell you who else is a stud. No one will believe me. No one ever believes me when I say this.
They should be good.
DJ Uiagalelei is a very good quarterback. It will happen. You're not seeing it right now, but it will happen. I see the potential in him. Look at that face. Oh, my God. You don't believe me. You will soon, Austin. You will see
I see no
why
potential.
DJ is a very good quarterback. He has the mobility. He has the arm talent. He's got one of the strongest arms in the conference. He's just not making his reads right now.
It's kind of important, I'd say.
It'll happen. He's still young. It's going to happen for Clemson. I think they're better than you think. I have to disagree.
Didn't he have more interceptions than passing touchdowns last year?
No comment.
No comment. Interesting.
But I will comment on this team that is rated higher than Clemson, the Michigan Wolverines.
Ooh.
You talked about how Clemson hasn't played anybody. This team hasn't either. They're 3-0 with wins over Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but how do we let UConn play in Division I still? And how do you let Michigan play them? I mean, your defense loses Aiden Hutchinson and David Ojabo. How are you supposed to replace those guys?
And Mike McDonald, the DC.
Exactly, and that's the strong point of this team. They're supposed to have one of the strongest defenses in the entire country. Now you mix that with a quarterback, not controversy anymore because they like McCarthy more than McNamara now, but he's yet to play well in a big game. His first big game of his life was last year against Georgia, the Orange Bowl. He had 7 completions and they lost 34-11. I'm out on Michigan.
It's a good pick, but it's a pick that I can't put my chest out and say they're overrated because we've still yet to see what they can do against a good team. But, you know, I respect the pick. Here's where it gets tough, right? Because, once again, there's many teams that I think...
Well, he's got one more.
I do have one more. You just jumped
the gun.
Snake draft, Austin.
Jumped the gun. I got lost in the snake.
I'm going to go with another highly rated team because can't let you guys steal them. I'm taking Oklahoma. Ooh. They haven't played anybody yet either. They 3-0. They beat UTEP, Kent State, and Nebraska. Such a disappointment Nebraska is. Goodbye, Scott Frost. You're done. Sorry, it didn't work out. Oklahoma, I don't think it's going to work out this season either. Their quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, transferred from UCF. He put up some of the craziest stats in college football history there. His touchdown to interception ratios are nuts.
Much better than Ubiongale's, you'd say?
They're a little bit better, but I can't give them the respect of 6th overall in the nation if you don't go out and play anybody. It's not that hard to schedule real opponents, and they're pretending by scheduling Nebraska. That is fake. They know Nebraska's not going to be good, but they go ahead and do it. For you to be top 10 and especially 6th overall, you have to have beaten somebody by now.
Nebraska's kind of a rivalry game. I respect the play there at Omaha.
It makes sense.
So, at least they won in convincing that fashion there. So I jumped the gun, but you didn't take any teams that I still have left on my board, which I'm happy about. I'm going to go to a different Big 12 team right here, and that's the Baylor Bears, all right? They have 2 wins against the Great Danes of Albany and the Bobcats of Texas State. And Liam, in the control room, I know what you're saying. That's got to be a damn good Bobcats team. No, it's a damn bad Bobcats team, all right? Frankly, this Baylor Bears team, by the way, is pretty mediocre. So when you think of the Big 12, what do you guys think of when you think of the Big 12?
Points.
Yes, points, scoring, passing
I was going to
offenses.
say the South,
right?
But sure.
Sure. I mean, it's a little Midwest.
Maybe the Midwest,
yeah. Little flyover
Little barbecue
country, if you will.
action.
Yeah. So
Stop, I'm hungry.
yeah, but when you think of this Baylor team, and you think of the conference being a high octane passing offense, how many yards do you think the leading receiver on this Baylor team has? Don't look.
It should at least be 250 maybe,
Yeah, 250
right?
is a good benchmark.
He's played 3 games.
Yeah.
What if I told you it's 93?
Oh, that's
wow.
disappointing.
93 yards is the highest receiver. That's Hal Presley. And yes, he appeared in all 3 games. There was no sort of injury or suspension there. He's played in all 3 games. And they rank the Baylor Bears 8th out of 10 Big 12 teams. By the way, just 10 teams in the Big 12 and the Big 10 with 15 teams. Come on now. But they rank 8th out of 10 teams in passing yards per game. And if we want to play the transitive property game, which I know we kind of alluded to earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understandable.
But Baylor lost to BYU, who got crushed by Oregon, who got embarrassed by Georgia. So even though Baylor's ranked 17th, they're not even close to being in the elite programs here in college football.
Carry the 1, add a 0.
One of the weird things about Baylor, we always attribute Baylor to high-flying offense, the Art Briles era. That's kind of not this next generation of Baylor. These past few years when they've bounced back and been a good team, they've really focused on their defense. They haven't had all these studs on offense to take care of every game, but they're a totally different team than they always have been.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys, you're taking a lot of like those Midwest kind of. I'm still very much on the East Coast here with
East Coast biased.
A little bit, maybe a little bit.
I have
but,
that too. It's okay.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
So
likewise.
I don't know how you guys are going to feel about this
As I'm
next
wearing a
pick
Sacramento jersey.
in terms of an overrated team, but I'm going to keep it right at home. I'm picking Syracuse. I think Syracuse is a bit overrated here.
No.
Yeah, I'm not on the big Syracuse hype train, to be honest. Look, this is a team that's 3-0. This team is not that good. They really aren't.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. They were lucky to beat Purdue. Purdue somehow managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory against Syracuse. There was no reasonable way that Syracuse should have won that game. And when you look at that game specifically, you can see the formula that teams are going to use to shut down Syracuse. You slow down Sean Tucker, and when you do that, Garrett Schrader is still not good enough to beat you with his arm. He's not.
We're about to go in on him, right?
This dude,
Yeah, we are.
he
Okay,
looks
good.
for his first
Good.
read, and when his first read isn't there, he panics and runs.
This dude.
Like, this is the same Garrett Schrader as last year with maybe a little bit better throwing accuracy.
All right.
That's it.
Do you want to prove
That's
him
it.
wrong first?
Can we go over a dude off right here? How many dudes are on the Syracuse team?
A lot of
Syracuse, by the way.
How about some guys?
Some
This
guys,
team
some
has
dudes?
guys, dogs, and dudes.
Well, how about you stop us when we get to a non-guy or a non-dude?
Okay,
All right,
non-guy,
Danny?
non-dude.
Yeah. Sean Tucker.
Dude.
Yeah.
That guy.
Guy.
Matthew-
He's him.
Matthew
Yes.
Bergeron.
Yeah, he's all right.
NFL player.
Yeah.
Future NFL stud.
Yeah.
Marlo Wax.
Marlo Axe, solid. Baltimore native.
Marlo Wax will eat you for breakfast.
Yeah.
And for lunch. And
St. Francis alum.
Mikel Jones.
That guy.
He's a guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
the armbands. Oh, love that. Garrett Williams.
Yeah, he's a guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's that?
See, I
He's a
notice
dude.
you're naming a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball. outside of Tucker and Bergeron.
Oh, that's
right?
funny because hasn't the Syracuse offense put up 30-plus points in every game this season?
But look at the defenses they're playing. They're not playing good defenses.
Purdue was a good defense. No, you don't think so?
No, I don't think Purdue's a good defense.
All right, let me tell you why you're completely
Purdue is an
wrong.
offensive-led team with Aiden O'Connell.
So you're calling Syracuse overrated.
Yes.
Let me tell you how they're rated. They received 7 votes in the AP poll. I think that puts them about the 35th in the country.
Yep.
They are better than Minnesota, who you called overrated.
Yeah.
They're better than Oregon State, Washington State.
Are they
who
better
you
than
actually
Oregon State?
liked.
Washington State.
Are they
Yes.
better than
It's a
Oregon
soft spot.
State?
Right
Sure
now,
about that?
I think the Syracuse Orange should be right around 30, and with these 2 wins, they will be right around that 25. When they destroy Virginia tonight, and when they beat Wagner by, 200 points?
Wagner does not count. Wagner does not count.
It's a free win, a bye week. But you are wrong.
Vegas
This
will
is
not
one
be-
of the most talented teams in the ACC. I think at this point they're headed for close to 8 wins or so. They're talented all around the field, not just the defense. How about Aronde Gadsden coming out and showing how he's the wide receiver 1 on this team? They
was
have the
one
best
game.
running back in the nation. They have a quarterback that's confidently throwing the ball. You can't discard Garrett Schrader. He's not last year's Schrader. This is a totally different offense. Thanks to a couple of Virginia Cavaliers, Robert Anai and Jason Beck, this team is very good. They're going to be great.
All right, we got to move on, but I know we would love to continue this discussion maybe off camera. So I've got one more pick on this go around, and I'm sticking in the ACC, the Pitt Panthers. A little bit overrated. The number 24 in the country right now, but when you lose a guy like Kenny Pickett and you lose a guy like Jordan Addison, it's pretty tough to rebound and come back. They tried to replace Pickett with Keaton Slovis, and I've been a bit of a Keaton Slovis truther throughout his career, but even I have to admit it, the dude's just not that good.
Yeah, I believe Jackson Dart took his spot last year at
Yeah,
USC.
like he's got about 500 yards passing and just 2 touchdowns. Like, those just are not acceptable numbers for the starting quarterback of a ranked team. They're not. In the receivers, no receiver with even 15 catches on the year.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that
unacceptable.
pick. I don't think Slovis is that good, and losing Addison totally changes your team. I think this is a little bit of a Pitt of last year hangover that they are still in the top 25 because Pickett and Addison were great. Overall, they were a great team. I think this is a little leftover from last year.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm going to stick with the East Coast. And once again, it's deja vu, right? I'm making my 3rd pick. The corner's coming up. I don't want to be sniped here. So I'm going to go pivot to my 4th team that I'm a little more excited to talk about.
You're going to take mine. I know you are.
The Florida Gators.
Not mine.
America, the Gators are overrated. They're overrated. All right, some people think, week 1, they beat Utah. Okay, nice win, whatever. They were 7th ranked, the Utah Utes. They're home. Florida was favored. Okay, you get that win. Then you get handily beat by Kentucky, and then you almost get upset by USF. All those games, by the way, were in the swamp. And I asked you guys a trivia question last time around. Here's another trivia question for you guys. How many passing touchdowns on the season do you think Anthony Richardson has?
4.
5.
The answer, 0.
Oh, wow.
0.
Wow.
There are 0 touchdown passes for Anthony Richardson. I know the 2-point conversion went viral, but he has 0 passing touchdowns. In fact, over the last 2 games, the premature Heisman hopeful has just 24 completions to his team and 4 completions to the other teams. That's interceptions. Yeah. Interceptions.
I know.
We got that.
I agree with you on this take.
So, now they play away from the swamp for the first time. They're going to be in Tennessee. They're going to get rolled. Florida, they're overrated.
I agree with you there. I don't think Anthony Richardson is as good as people think. I'm taking a team with a quarterback who is much worse than people think. Everybody's high on this team right now. I'm going Penn State. People really love them after that Auburn win, but big whoop. You go out, you go to Auburn, you beat them. They're not a talented team anymore. They're not very good. They have a good running back. Quarterback play is atrocious, but Penn State, yeah, it's a good win, but they barely beat Purdue, something Syracuse also did. They played Ohio, beat them by 36. That's not saying much. It's a very talented Penn State team, a good defense, one of the best young running backs in the nation. But let me tell you the problem on the team. The quarterback, Sean Clifford, is a bona fide scrub.
Wow.
He's been in college football since, 2009? I think this guy can't get it done. They made a huge mistake in not going out into the transfer portal and getting a good quarterback.
I think they did. His name is Chad Powers.
Oh, yeah. That was actually very funny.
They cut
Eli
Chad
Manning.
Powers.
Oh, no.
That
not
was
Chad.
That was a great bit. But he'd probably be much better than Sean Clifford, who, let me show you his completion percentages the past few years. This year it's at 64, but through 3 games, doesn't even have 700 passing yards yet. Last year, 61, year before 60, year before 59. He's not that good. He's not good enough to lead this team to anything special.
So when 2 of your overrated teams, Penn State and Michigan, clash in a few weeks, who you got in the big house?
They're both going to lose. No, I'm kidding. I think that's a good opportunity for Michigan to prove themselves because Sean Clifford won't even sniff winning a big game anywhere in his Penn State
I'm going to say Penn State's going to get the upset. Sean Clifford, welcome to your cardiac moment.
Okay. All right, I'm open to it.
Last round. One more chance.
My last one. I believe you called this team underrated. The Miami Hurricanes, right?
It was a pivot pick, but yes, I did.
I'm going to say they're overrated. They've played Bethune-Cookman, Southern Miss. They won those games by a lot. But Texas A&M, that was their opportunity, and they squandered it. That's a game that they really could have won. It was at A&M, so a tough one. The quarterback, Van Dyke, is still very young. Talented team, but Mario Cristobal's first year. Give it some time. Right now, I don't think they're a top 25. I like ACC teams like Wake Forest a little more, but I think they're kind of in the same territory as Pitt right now.
Well, I mean, you're calling them overrated, and you're calling them underrated. Doesn't that mean they're perfectly rated?
Ooh.
If we had the same brain here, then maybe, yes.
Yeah, that's a good
host right there. That's a good host right there.
That's some logic right there. The final pick, I think a theme here has been ACC teams because a lot of these teams are kind of bunched up there in that mediocre range, wait and see range. I'm going to go with the NC State Wolfpack. They have scored fewer than 30 points against both East Carolina and Texas Tech. Those are 2 teams that you should be getting way more points against, right? And similar to Baylor, their leading receiver has not eclipsed 105 yards. Devin Leary, the quarterback, there's a lot of buzz with him entering the preseason, but he's had his worst season thus far since his first season with NC State. Lowest in yards per completion, quarterback rating, and completion percentage dating back to 2020. This offense ranks bottom 5 in the ACC, and their defense is actually tied with Clemson with just 5 sacks. NC State, Syracuse, we'll see them in a few weeks. We might touch on that game if we have time here, but I'm not high on them.
All right, keeping it East Coast. I'm actually leaving the East Coast. First time, feels like all day. This is a team I think you guys are pretty high on based on some other reactions. I'm going with Michigan State. Sparty's a bit too highly rated for my liking, and this is less of their own fault, but they just play such a tough schedule in the Big Ten East the rest of the way. At Maryland, at Michigan, at Penn State, versus Ohio State, but still a tough game. But more than that, their offense, they look reluctant to throw the ball at times. And this isn't an Iowa where they're just not going to score at all, but it's a team that just wants to run, and when it's working, that's great, but if it's not working, they're going to keep doing it anyway. And we saw the struggle with that when they went and lost to Washington. So the formula is out for how to beat them, and I think these tough Big Ten East teams are going to keep picking up on that as the season goes on.
I'd have to agree. They had their opportunity in playing Washington, but I think they're properly rated. They're not in the top 25, and they're right outside of it. They'll have an opportunity again once they get into the tough Big Ten play. I think that's when we can really judge them. There's a good chance this team kind of falls off once they start playing good teams.
They might fall off, but they're still going to beat Maryland.
I like how you squeaked in Maryland with their tough opponents.
We'll see.
They're real scared of Tauliotungo-Vailoa.
It's a turtle. Who's scared of a turtle?
All right, let's calm down here. Let's all settle down in the Citrus TV studios. Well, we've got our overrated teams: Minnesota, Pitt, Syracuse, and Michigan State for myself. Clemson, Baylor, Florida, and NC State for Austin. And Jack has Michigan, Miami, Oklahoma, and Penn State. Let us know what you think on those Citrus TV socials. But that's enough of ratings. Let's get out of ratings. Let's talk Blue Bloods. I know we might be in the wrong sport for Blue Bloods, but hear me out. All these traditional Blue Bloods, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, UCLA, Kentucky, Indiana, Syracuse, all undefeated in college football right now. So I want to know, they're all 3-0. Who's the best Blue Blood?
Yeah, easy answer for me, Danny. So,
Whoa. We might all have the same answer. Should we say it on 3?
I feel like he's going to mess it up somehow. He's going to say something else.
I think we all have the same. Let's try it. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Kentucky.
All right. Thank the Lord.
I mean, in an ode to Lizzie, the notable 96-year-old woman from the UK.
Right.
It's the UK. It's the University of Kentucky. So, the Wildcats are good. They're a top 10 ranked team. They got Will Levis. He has coffee. He has mayo in his coffee. It's a little weird, but he gets the job done.
Weird?
It's a little weird.
He puts mayonnaise in his coffee. Yeah.
It's a little weird, but he gets the job done, right? So that's a resume win at Florida. This is the best team. Mark Stoops, I know there's a lot of controversy entering this season where Kentucky was like, oh, is it a basketball school? Is it a football school? It's clearly still a basketball.
It's both
basketball
now.
school. But when John Calipari called out Mark Stoops now has a little leverage on him now. So it's exciting times in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah. And not only are they a good team this year, they've got the program consistency under Mark Stoops. I mean, he's been there almost 10 years now, and look at all the alumni they've got in the NFL. Josh Allen, Zadarius Smith, Wan'Dale Robinson, just to name a few. I mean, that program is becoming a model of consistency for churning out NFL-level talent.
And if you look at the rest of the blue blood schools we're about to talk about, there are teams on the rise right now that are bouncing back from some tough years. Well, you're right. Kentucky has been doing it. And in the SEC, too. They're not a traditional football powerhouse, but to be consistent in the SEC, that is so tough, and they're getting it done.
Yeah, I think they host Georgia. They have a pretty favorable schedule, right? So that Georgia game, I believe it's the second to last one of the season. It's in November. That might be one of the most hype atmospheres that campus has ever experienced.
Yeah, especially for football.
Yeah.
So, let's look at some of these other blue bloods. I want to talk about Kansas. We talked about them a little bit with them being underrated, but Kansas playing Duke in Lawrence this weekend, that game is sold out. Yeah. First sellout in Lawrence in 3 years since about 75% of Kansas State fans took over the stadium in 2019.
This game is Coach K against Bill Self, right? Those are the two teams playing right now?
Or actually,
it must be.
It's Coach K's retired. It's the new guy.
John Shire.
Shire
he's a puppet.
Self.
He's a puppet for Coach K. We'll get into that next season. But
yeah, I mean, referees might show up at Allen Fieldhouse, honestly, at this rate.
Big fan of Kansas, though, this year. I think they're going to beat the doors off of Duke this week. I would say Duke is the worst of these teams.
I'd have to agree.
I think Kansas is not right below Kentucky, but I think they're the next best. Their offense is incredible, scoring 53 points a game in 3 games, and they've played real opponents in West Virginia and Houston.
Yeah, I know I wasn't high on Kansas when you made that pick, but the win at Houston is undeniable, and I think they're a touchdown favorite against Duke, so I expect the Jayhawks to win. I think they will win, and beating Duke, I know it's football, but anytime you beat Duke, it's fun.
Absolutely.
All right, so you said you think Kansas is the worst of the blue blood schools?
No, Duke.
Or Duke, pardon me.
Yes.
Duke. You think Kansas is pretty good?
Yes.
Duke. Who's your worst blue
Duke,
blood?
I agree.
Duke?
It's got to be Duke.
I mean, they haven't played anybody, and they're coming off of a 3-9 season. It's not a talented team. Ever since Danny Dimes left Duke, I mean, they haven't really been much, and I think their hot start might stop this week.
Okay, well, I have a little bit of a different take here. I'm going with Indiana as far as the worst blue blood. Now, they've very much squeaked to 3-0. A couple of 3-point wins when they've played actual teams and then a blowout over a not actual team. But my insight here, my older brother actually is a beat reporter on the Indiana beat. So I hear a lot that's coming out of Bloomington. And as far as the Indiana fan base and team is concerned, they're getting lucky to win these games. They've been outplayed for the large majority of their 3 games. They just happen to come up with clutch plays that are able to keep them alive and get them those wins. So they've been outplayed out of their, let's say, 180 minutes or so. They've probably been outplayed for at least 120 of it.
Yeah, I have here in my notes, Indiana at 5 for the Blue Blood rankings, barely beat Illinois. So anytime
Tommy DeVito's a pretty good quarterback. I don't know.
Tommy DeVito.
Well,
I give them a little bit of credit that they won a conference game already. They're 3-0. I think they're kind of in the middle of the pack of this group. You can't write them off, I don't think, until they go out and lose those big games, because you're saying they're getting outplayed through their first 3 games, which makes a lot of sense. They're barely squeaking by these teams, but you have to give them credit for winning close games.
Yeah, that's true.
They might fall off later on. Then I'll believe you.
Yeah. All right, so we're about to run out of time here. Very quickly, before we go, I want your guys' opinion. A lot of talk on this Syracuse campus about college game day. This is the first time Syracuse has been this good in a while, so very quickly, I just want your opinions. If Syracuse beats Virginia and Wagner and goes in and hosts a ranked NC State team at 5-0, is College Game Day coming to Central New York? Very quickly.
I don't want to say anything because I don't want to jinx the program. I don't want to jinx this Virginia game, but let's go with yes. Let's go with yes. You know, Tennessee, Alabama, Tennessee, they always play that game in mid-October. That's boring. Get that out of here. USC, Utah, who knows where those teams will be 2-3 weeks from now. Utah already has a loss under their belt. And Penn State, Michigan, that would be the one I'm worried about. But if you think that they're both overrated, they might have a loss at that point. So, yes, let's say yes.
I'm usually Mr. Positivity about Syracuse football. I love them from the bottom of my heart. But they're going to beat Virginia. They're going to beat Wagner. They'll be 5-0. But they're not going to be ranked yet. And the biggest problem, NC State has to go play at Clemson. They're not going to win that game either. Sorry to say it, but no.
That's all the time we got. Thank you for tuning in to the No Pulp Podcast. Danny Tao, Austin Barach, Jack Griffin. Have a good night.
Jack Griffin.
Jack Griffin.